Oh,
So
God.
you've had a very interesting couple weeks.
Yeah, I feel kind of exhausted. Every day I wake up and there's some like notification in my inbox. Like I've been locked out
Hmm.
or had like reports every single day
Yeah.
since last week. And then when I tweet about being locked out, I get locked out again. Yeah, I woke up today and was like, cool. Like I was locked out and they made me delete 4 tweets.
Hmm.
And they also did on Wednesday too.
Yeah. And this started like on the 15th. That's when I went back. That's when I saw, like, sometime last
Yeah.
week.
I mean, I my account was suspended twice within like 24 hours in the summer.
Okay.
Uh, and then nothing happened since then. And then, yeah, I got locked out on Thursday for saying that men aren't women.
You
And
just
then
came out and said that, or did you have like,
I was responding to somebody, like it was
huh.
part of some conversation in October and was said males can't become female, so they made me delete that. And then all the other ones they made me delete were to do with this creepy dude who lives in Vancouver, whose name used to be Ryan Krut. I don't know if I'm pronouncing his last name right, and then
Hmm.
decided that he was Lisa Krut
Hmm.
and became like this weird dominatrix. So he
Oh.
also goes by the name of Haley Heartless. And he's really involved in the labor movement here in Vancouver. And
Hmm.
he's such a freaking creep, man. Like if you look at
Hmm.
his Twitter account, you'll just like I can't even look at it. He's such a gross creep. And he's such a weirdo. And it's like he has so much power. And I guess he
Hmm.
knows somebody at Twitter safety and has been getting them to force me to delete all my tweets that reference him.
Hmm.
And even if they don't even specifically say his name, but they're about him, because he is the one that went after my website's fundings. And he also was involved in getting a local transition house and rape crisis center here in Vancouver called Vancouver Rape Relief.
Being against rape is wrong now? Is that their strategy?
It's because Vancouver Rape Relief has a woman only policy.
Okay.
And there was a big case back in the 90s. A trans woman took them to human rights court because they wouldn't let him do the training to become a counselor there because they have a policy of only letting females become counselors. I mean, also only letting females come to the transition house. They're women only, and they don't view trans women as women.
Okay.
But he lost, and they won.
Okay.
They won the right to define their own membership, is what happened.
You wrote a excellent article, and it's getting a lot of play, where you say some things about the Twitter fiasco where you're basically blocked, and you kind of call out the left for deplatforming or going on a deplatforming spree.
Yeah.
And one criticism that I've seen in some places of the internet is that you're getting your own, or this is karma. Have you ever been for censorship?
I don't think so. Like, was trying to remember it because I was like, I kept being about to say, like, I've never tried to no platform anyone before. I've never, like, started a petition to have anyone fired or no platform. So, like, I don't want to say something that's not true, but I can't think of it's never been my thing. Like, that's never been my tactic to shut people down. I've never tried to get someone's Twitter account shut down. I've
Yeah.
never like I didn't, even celebrate like when Milo got kicked off Twitter. That's not what I want. Like I don't want people to stop talking. I have allies in the feminist movement who have petitioned to have misogynist men no platformed, but I haven't personally participated in any of those campaigns.
Do you think that this deplatforming of the left by the left is new, or is it picking up steam, or has it kind of been a tactic in the left to go after your ideological opponent and cut them off from communication?
I mean, somebody with a longer history on the left might be able to speak to this better than me, but as far as I can tell, it's fairly new. Like, it's something that's really picked up steam over the past 5 years, and it seems to be something that came from college campuses, from students. along with all this like trigger warning stuff where it's like you have to put triggers on your syllabus if you've included content that some people might be upset or offended by. Jonathan Haidt talks about this. I mentioned this in my article, which I thought was like a really good way of describing it, like sort of medicalizing your offense or like your disagreement.
Yeah.
Where it's like you're triggered and it's like, no, you're not. Like this, like being triggered is supposed to be something that's attached to like PTSD, like people who've been to war and like experienced really horrific stuff, or people who've been sexually abused. Mm-hmm. A lot of women in prostitution have PTSD. And it's like a real serious thing. It's not just you feeling upset or uncomfortable because people disagree with you. Like, it just seems to me that students don't know how to handle disagreement, and they don't think they have to. Campuses and universities and academia in general is supposed to be primarily a place, I think, where you learn how to think critically and to challenge your own opinions, not just shut it down and then keep talking amongst yourselves with people who already agree with you and also haven't challenged their perspectives and opinions.
One of the things that's said about your tweets, or the statement that men can't be women or men are not women, is that it's hate speech. Like this phrase itself dehumanizes or threatens the very existence of the people that it's targeting. There certainly is strong speech, and you use strong speech. I've read your stuff on Twitter. You're contentious. You use the F word a lot. You love to swear, but
I'm just trying to be authentic. I really value authenticity and just being me.
But do you think that there are cases where speech is harmful, where speech is detrimental or can be triggering? I mean, you're against pornography, so in a way, pornography as a form of speech you see as damaging to society or to individuals.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a difference between saying something that you think something's harmful and then defining it as a hate crime. But I do think that if you're inciting violence or genocide, then sure, that qualifies as hate speech, and that is dangerous. Mm-hmm. Like if you're explicitly encouraging other people to perpetrate violence on or kill others, then yeah. I would say that's hate speech.
Do you understand the reasoning why men are not women as a statement is hateful? I mean, can we?
Hateful, but I mean,
Can we understand, or can you help me to understand why somebody would?
Well, because I think that what's happened with this whole transgender trend is that it was decided by the trans movement that in order for people who are suffering from gender dysphoria or who identify as transgender to feel accepted, that we have to go along with this belief or claim that if you feel like a woman, you are a woman and you should be accepted as a woman, or vice versa. If you feel like a man and you're female, you should be accepted and treated like a man, and that this is the best way to accept and comfort and deal with people who are experiencing what's called gender dysphoria. I mean, part of the problem with all this is that like the word transgender itself has not been defined in a coherent way by trans activists.
They even go out of their way to try to make it never defined. Like there's
exactly.
In certain circles, they don't want it defined because definition itself is harmful or will reduce us into categories.
Right. So they're not even saying in order to be transgender, you have to have this so-called condition that's called gender dysphoria. They're just saying literally anyone on any day who declares themselves transgender or non-binary or a woman or a man is, and that we have to accept that. Because if we say that, or if they say that what qualifies a person as transgender is having gender dysphoria, then it sort of medicalizes it, and they don't want to treat it as a mental condition, I think.
But they want to treat speech as a medical condition.
Yeah, that makes way more sense, right? they want to treat my tweets as like causing them to, I don't know, commit suicide or to become triggered and traumatized. But
and isn't this identification of yourself as male or female or both or neither or whatever, isn't that based on the first move, which I think originates from feminism or feminist thinkers, of gender being a construct? Doesn't this result from the decoupling of gender from sex? And aren't you in a way trying to draw a line that there is a line where a man is a man and not a woman, and a woman is a woman and not a man?
Yeah, so I think it probably does arise from a confusion about this attempt on the parts of feminists to differentiate between gender and sex, and to say that gender is a social role whereas sex is biological. But they seem to have really misunderstood that, because what they are doing is tying sex and gender together. So what feminists are saying is that there are males and there are females. Males and females are different. That's fine. Like, there's obviously some lines have gotten crossed along the way somewhere, where I think maybe certain factions of feminism, and, you know, now what we would call, I don't know, I guess third wave feminism or the queer movement, fought so hard for equality that they confused that with pushing for this idea that men and women are the same. And I don't think that men and women are the same. I don't think that it's important for us to pretend that men and women are the same. I don't think that in order for there to be justice, I don't think that in order for there to be women's rights, I don't think that in order for women to be treated with respect. In
the case of a shelter for somebody specifically for battered women, it would be, in a sense, psychologically triggering for them to deal with a male-bodied person in that space.
For sure.
Right?
And the women who are in transition houses have suffered really horrific, unimaginable violence. I mean, I have never worked in a transition house, but I know lots and lots and lots of women who do. And the stuff, I mean, they're traumatized and triggered from having to hear these stories. Like, they're just awful what these women go through. And to push to allow men into those safe spaces where women are escaping male violence and trying to heal, just because these men want to feel accepted as women, is like, I just find it kind of sick. Like, and I mean, if not sick, like just so selfish, like so thoughtless. It's like your comfort and your desire to be supported in your delusion or your desires that really only have to do with your personal identity and feelings and nothing else, that you want to harm women or make women feel uncomfortable or unsafe in the process. It's like, why are your personal desires and feelings so much important than someone else's? I mean, where do you draw the line? How do you choose whose feelings of safety or comfort are the most important? And obviously the trans movement has decided it's transgender people. Emma? My dog is...
In one of your tweets you said, I think I have it here, I don't know if I can quote it directly, but somebody calls you out for... says something weird. I don't understand all the language. Where is it? Okay. Are trans people not allowed to live as trans? And you guys have a discussion, and you say basically you're happy for people to live how they like, and you're opposed to legislating around people's feelings or preferences with regards to gender identity, though. It just, the problem that I have is that I don't know how you can keep the argument that gender is a social construct separate from gender as a personal identity or gender as a personal choice.
Okay, so what feminists are saying when they're saying that gender is a social construct or a social role is that they're saying that when a female is born, she's socialized into femininity. So she's socialized towards a particular role. This is going to drive me insane. Stop whining. Sorry. Okay, then come here. Come. Okay. She just wants attention, but she won't come over here to get attention. She's just like a girl.
Who socialized her that way?
Really sexist joke. Sorry.
You're the one who socialized her, so it's
and likewise, so if a baby boy is born, so a male is born, then he's socialized into masculinity. And so what feminists are saying is that these roles are imposed on males and females, on men and women. And what these transgender activists are saying is that it's internal. So you're born either with, I don't know, some kind, like, again, it's so unspecific, but it's possible to be born with a male body but somehow be a woman on the inside because of your internal gender identity. So they're somehow saying that gender isn't attached to sex, but also that it is attached to sex, because if you're a man and you feel like a woman on the inside, that means you're actually female.
Okay. So a man can act as feminine as he wants, according to you.
I think so. I mean, I feel like people should be free to wear what they want. If they want to wear dresses or have long hair or wear makeup or not, then fine, knock yourself out. If you really want to get a bunch of surgery, like, fine, go for it. I think that's kind of like an extreme thing to do. And I'm also opposed to, like, I've written critically about plastic surgery that women get, breast implants, stuff like that. I don't think that it's necessarily helpful to individuals or to women as a whole. But, I mean, if you really want to, these are horrible surgeries that transgender people go through. Like, there's a ton of them, and they're really quite serious and quite harsh. Like, they're not fun. But if you really want to do that, then go for it. But, like, it's this thing where they started to legislate around this incoherent, undefined concept and idea that really does put women out. Like, so now we're seeing males competing against women in sports, and it's unfair. We're seeing men being transferred to women's prisons, which I think is dangerous. We're seeing men being allowed to go into women's change room where there's women and girls. Like, it's like, come on, man. Like, like, this is a dude. Like, he has a dick. Like, and if he wants to go into a change room with women and girls, I'm going to kind of be suspicious about his motives.
Okay.
Like, I'm going to think he's kind of a perv, or that he likes to make women and girls feel uncomfortable or something like that.
So what you're trying to say, correct me, please, is that a person can do whatever they want to themselves, but they cannot legislate you to treat them in a way that you don't want them to, or you don't want to.
They can't force me to lie. Like, you can't force me to go along with this idea that it's possible for a male to become female. You can't force me to pretend that you're a woman when you're not a woman. Everyone knows you're not a woman. You probably know you're not a woman. Otherwise, why are you identifying as transgender? Because you know you're a man who wants to be a woman. Otherwise, you'd just already be female, and what's the trans for? Right? Like, what are you transitioning to and
but
from?
If they can shut you up, if they can silence your point of view, they basically win. They win the argument.
Well, what Twitter is doing is they're preventing me from making my argument. Like, I can't explain what my analysis of transgenderism is if I can't say these things. Like, if I can't say, I don't believe that males can become female, then how do I explain what my argument is? Like, they're forcing me to not be able to talk about this, right? Like, I don't know. They're bullied. Like, I feel bullied. Like, I don't like to misuse the word bully, but do you know what I mean? Like, it almost feels like harassment when it's like, they're obviously combing through all my tweets and then locking down my account almost every day. Like, no, you can't say this, you can't say this. And I'm not saying anything hateful. I'm just saying this basic stuff that's all of a sudden been defined as hate because the trans movement doesn't want us to say it.
Well, why is it so threatening to disagree with this group?
Well, I mean, if you start poking holes in their arguments and they start having to respond to my arguments, then they know that their argument falls apart. Because what I ask over and over and over again is, what is transgender, which nobody will explain? And, how does a man become a woman, which nobody will explain? What is a trans woman? What's the difference between a male and a trans woman? Because they know that there is no difference, and if they start trying to explain it, they become hypocrites because they're trying to pretend like these ideas are connected to the feminist movement, and that if you're a feminist, you have to support the idea of transgenderism. But if you start to explain how the difference between a male and a trans woman, it all just ends up sounding sexist, because you just end up saying things like, well, he really feels like a woman. It's like, what does it mean to feel like a woman? Well, he just really feels really like passive, or he really likes makeup, or he just loves wearing pantyhose and high heels, or, you know, he doesn't feel aggressive or dominant or something like that. Then you start getting into stereotypes. Like, you can't really explain those ideas without accepting gendered stereotypes, and they're pretending that they don't accept gendered stereotypes. They're pretending like they're opposed to gendered stereotypes, and that they're just interested in gender fluidity and liberation for everybody from these gender roles. But from my perspective, it's the opposite.
Is there a way to define feminism that doesn't sound sexist, essentially?
I mean, I see feminism as a movement towards ending male violence against women and male dominance and female subordination.
Okay.
So I don't know if that makes sense to you.
And because you in your formula, the male dominance of women doesn't come from a biological framework. It comes from a cultural framework. And so you believe that by changing the culture, it will reduce the dominant subservient dynamic between men and women.
I mean, I hope so. I think that it's connected to biology in that I think that the root of patriarchy is around men wanting to control women's reproductive capacity. So I think that the reason that patriarchy, the reason that patriarchy exists is because when men realize that their sperm plays a role in babies, and they want to have access to their kids. I mean, way back when, I think it was probably just to have labor around, but also to like perpetuate your bloodline, like stuff that's pretty basic, stuff that's not necessarily like negative or nefarious stuff, which turned into men wanting to control women so that they could again control the babies.
In a way, you can make a similar argument that marriage was formed in order for a woman to not be left alone with a child and without the resources to raise a child. So in a way, there's a heavy argument to be made that there's two parties with two different sets of desires that have kind of negotiated a social construct or contract, which ends up in this social construct of gender. The woman will act in a certain way, and then the man will stay with her and not run off, and then the man will act in a certain way. And there's a dynamic. It's twofold. It's not just one or the other, unless you want to completely deny any agency of women throughout time. Right. It would break down into women were so weak that they allowed men to form patriarchy.
Sure. I don't think that women are complicit in the system.
Yeah.
Of course women participate. They keep marrying men. They keep having their babies. Idiots. Just joking.
You know what? The cool thing about this format rather than Twitter is that we can hear your voice, we can hear your smile, we can hear your laughter. We know, like, even if you do believe that it's okay to hate on men, which is an article like on your blog, you know, like man hating is something that needs to come back. You didn't write it, but one of your writers wrote it. But in this format, there's more room for argument. There's more.
I hate you guys, to be honest.
Well, yeah, but you hate us in a way that I can see you licking your lips.
I don't really. No, I don't hate men.
But
aspects of you.
There's an aspect of feminism that is it's anti-male. It's hating on men, or it's finding empowerment through the denigration of men to a certain extent. And I've seen that rise up.
Kind of lazy. I don't mean on your part. I mean, it's kind of lazy to just like talk shit about men as a whole. I mean, and I've totally done that before. And like, I totally in the past year or so have been rethinking my approach
Why?
And I tend to think that, well, I mean, part of it is just, this is going to be tough to explain in a clear way. So I don't know if I really should have started talking about it because I'm still thinking about it. Um, I think that when you're young, you're really kind of gung ho.
Yeah.
And you kind of want to make, salacious or combative or really radical statements. And you want to paint things in a black and white way. And I think those kind of statements get a lot of attention. And now that, these kinds of conversations are happening primarily online, even more so. So if you make some big radical sounding statement like men are trash, then it's really easy for you to rack up likes and be like, yeah, men suck, or whatever it is. Not just around men, but I mean, there's all sorts of like statements like that made by so-called social justice warriors that go viral. And I think I probably participated in that when I was younger. And I mean, Gloria Steinem said that women become more radical as they get older, but I sort of feel like I'm becoming less radical in some ways. And like a little bit too tolerant, which makes me a little, I'm just becoming way too nice. I know that sounds like a crazy thing to say, but I guess I'm just kind of like exploring nuance.
Yeah. Well, the thing is that it seems like there's a line between you being mean and people being mean to you. I mean, in your article, you wrote about people telling you to go drink bleach and that you're this word, you're that word.
And choke and like, yeah.
And to a certain extent, you say that you have a tolerance for that. But there seems to be a line between that and when the platform itself comes after you. Right.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, like, I mean, I shouldn't admit to this, but it really doesn't bother me. Like, it's not like when people say horrible, like, I mean, people say horrible things to me online constantly. I just don't care. I mean, like, it's been happening to me for so long that I'm just used to it. I also, like, this is kind of what happens online. Like, this is kind of how it goes. Like, don't be naive. Like, I'm not saying it should happen or that it's good that it happens. But, I mean, this is, like, platforms like Twitter especially, people can kind of just say whatever. And, I mean, I don't necessarily feel threatened by people saying mean things to me on the internet. Like, it is sort of seeming like it's moving into real life in terms of this TERF thing, this transphobia thing, because there are women who've gotten punched and beaten up and like, some little girls yelled at me in my bar a while ago. I can't remember if I told you that last
Little
time.
Girls? No.
I mean, they were young. They were these stupid little girls. I was like, get out of my bar.
Why did they yell at you? Because they knew you're Meghan Murphy?
Yeah. And I was like, and I was too drunk to deal. But I was just like, oh, whatever. But you know what I mean? Like, it does seem like it's moving into real life a bit. Like the last talk that I did about trans activism.
At Laurier.
Kitchener. Pardon?
Kitchener. At Laurier.
Yeah.
And then
a bunch of security guards and nothing happened, but there were protesters outside and I was sort of glad to have them there. But anyway, like I was like, I don't know. I mean, people can say whatever they want to me on the internet. Like, I don't care. Like, and people might think I'm mean, but I don't think I'm mean. I think I'm just telling the truth. And I'm also speaking in the way that I would speak in real life. Like, you lose tone, but I would still in real life be like, fuck off. Like, no. Like, it's just who I am and how I am. I'm not going out of my way to pick on people, but I am going to call out like ridiculousness. Twitter, or something that I think is dangerous and wrong. And I do think that this kind of legislation is dangerous and wrong. Like, I think it's serious. And I didn't start talking about it until I decided it was serious. Like, I wasn't on about transgenderism before all this legislation started to come up and all these policies and people being allowed to change their IDs just through self-identification, and there's no process anymore. And I was like, no, this is too much. Like, this is something else.
Do you think that it's stoppable? Do you think that it's unstoppable at this point? Do you think it's locked in?
I go back and forth, but because I kind of think people are getting so fed up. Like, people are like I mean, I have way, way, way more supporters on this issue than detractors. Um, I think trans activists have a huge platform and a lot of power and are very loud. So it might appear to people that most people are supportive of this idea, but it's not true. Most people think it's ridiculous. If you talk to people in real life, they'll be like, I mean, they're too scared to say anything online often, but, you know, most people can see that this is ridiculous. And even online, I have way, way, way more support than I do people who are opposing me. So I guess I think sometimes I think that we can stop it because of that, but it's also being pushed through so quickly.
Yeah.
Like the legislation is already passed or passing, and I don't know how we're going to come back from that.
It's interesting that it seems like they're trying to make an example of you.
Yeah,
like
totally.
The way that Twitter's going after you and the way that Laurier handled you, or Kitchener, where they imposed like some insane like $8,000 or $12,000 security deposit.
Yeah. And they'd never done that to anyone else, like not that amount. I think they tried to charge Lindsay's group $5,000 for the last person that they brought, but mine was the most, and they don't charge any other student groups that kind of security fee to bring speakers in.
What's so dangerous about your ideas? Can you see that your ideas can you see your ideas being used to justify violence towards people who have gender dysphoria or who are recreationally transgender?
I mean, I don't see how. I'm not advocating for violence against anyone, certainly. God, I don't want that. And, like, the people who perpetrate violence against trans women are men. And they're certainly not feminist men. They're not men who have any idea who I am. God, like, I'm sure they're not even on Twitter. They're just Johns. Like, most of the trans women who are killed are in prostitution. And prostitution is a really, really dangerous industry. Anyone who's in it, men or women or trans people. I mean, that's what's going on. They're prostituted men of color. Like, where this is happening is in, like Brazil and places like that. It's not happening in Canada.
So you can make a case that you're not actually being violent. You're not inciting violence. But what you're basically doing is you're offending some ideologues who don't want to have to argue their position. And there's something dangerous about what you're saying. You're forcing them into a corner, and so they're shutting you down. I don't know. I mean, we have to speculate.
It's just that I'm challenging their ideas, and they don't want to have to respond to my questions because they know that their argument falls apart if they respond. They literally refuse. Like, at this event in Kitchener, it was great, actually, to see how useless these people were, because it was like, and how unaccustomed they are to being challenged. Like, you know, like this girl, this young woman asked me, can you hear that?
Yeah, but it's kind of cute.
Okay, I'm sorry. It's really, I don't know what she wants. Come here. Sorry, this is so annoying. So she asked, she was like, how do you feel about the fact that you're, like, hurting people's feelings? Your words are hurting people's feelings. And I was like, well, I said, your words are impacting people's lives. I mean, your words are now connected to legislation and policy that is impacting women's lives. But also, you know, like, I asked her, I was like, what's a woman? Like, what's a trans woman? Like, who are we talking about here? You're saying that I'm hurting transgender people. What's a transgender person? Who am I hurting? I don't want to be put on the spot. Like, it's like, you won't have a conversation about this because you know that your argument sucks. So they're just being everyone.
She said, I don't want to be put on the spot?
Yeah.
She just backed out of the...
that I don't want to be put on the spot. And I was like, no, of course not.
Did she was at the microphone.
You're saying that I have she's saying that she's accusing me of excluding people from the category of woman, and then I said, so after I asked what's transgender, what's a trans woman, and she says I don't want to be put on the spot. I asked that, and she wouldn't respond and kind of repeated her question about how I feel about hurting people's feelings and my exclusive language and blah 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 blah. Like, it's like, well, then what's the category of woman? I'm excluding people from the category of woman, but why should men be included in the category of woman? What's the category of woman then? If men are included in it, then it's not a category anymore. And why do you even care about this word? Like, why are you insisting that trans women are women if the word woman doesn't mean anything? Tell me what the word woman means. Yeah. What are they identifying as then if it's nothing? Or everybody should be included in it. It's just so ridiculous. Like, it blows my mind.
Beautiful.
And they won't respond.
Beautiful.
Yeah, it's incredible.
I heard rumors that you're writing a book. Are you going to write a book about your experiences?
Well,
being a herder of feelings.
It's going to be a book about my feelings. All the chapters are just going to be mad, sad, hungry. I love my dog. I've been working on a manuscript with a local publishing house for like 2.5 years now. It's finished. They approached me. It's a book about feminism. It's a critique of third wave feminism.
Okay.
And there are 2 chapters on transgenderism that are very tepid, in my opinion, because my publisher wanted me to be nice.
Okay.
So I tried to be nice.
Okay.
And I complied with all their suggested edits, places where they wanted me to change my language to be nicer. I did. I was pretty accommodating, although I did stick to my analysis, obviously. As far as I knew, everyone there was supportive of my analysis, or if they weren't, supported my right to have that analysis. And as soon as we got to our final edit, the owner of the company, who unfortunately is an older white man, so it's just kind of bad optics because my editors were women, editorial director is a woman, the people fighting on my behalf were women, and this guy just made a decision kind of over everybody's head, and sent me this rather like curt email saying that he didn't want to hurt people's feelings due to this trans stuff, and refused to explain further. I was like totally shocked. Like, they'd never brought up any real concerns about those chapters before, aside from the edits, which actually weren't extensive edits. Like, they were pretty small.
Yeah.
And so they pulled out. So I have like a manuscript now, and so obviously I'm going to find another publisher for it.
That's an interesting thing. So there's a theme running through this whole thing of you're not supposed to hurt people's feelings anymore.
Right.
Especially on this issue.
And
this
that's
is the issue
defense for not letting people speak about stuff or having ideas about stuff and like explaining or analyzing something. Like, or asking questions. Oh, well, my feelings are hurt, so it's like, oh, okay, this is going to be great for society and for ideas and for political and philosophical debate. If we can't ask any questions that hurt people's feelings or that people claim to have hurt feelings over, you can shut down literally any conversation you want. If you claim to be hurt by it.
Yeah, no, it only works one way, though. In practice, it only works one way. Only the people who have the power to say you can't speak because you're hurting my feelings. Only you can't tell them that they're hurting people's feelings, because that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Because of whatever excuse, it only works one way. There's a protected class. There's a protected feeling, and I wonder if we can figure out if they can just define exactly why their feelings are hurt. Just like if they can define their terms, it will collapse. And if that is just an excuse for them to shut down argument. Yeah. Which is a pansy way of thinking. I don't know. I don't know if you can build a society on the avoidance of...
Man. Like, yeah, like it's like, I don't understand why we're so scared of debate. And I think it's like specific to North America in a lot of ways. That doesn't seem to be as bad in the UK, because they are having a debate about this in the UK.
Are they?
Yeah, I mean,
Because they're shutting down a lot of speech in the UK.
they're still shutting down a lot of speech, but the mainstream media is still covering this debate and speaking to the feminists who are critical of gender identification, or gender, self-ID. Whereas here in Canada, the media won't even acknowledge that there's a critique in the first place. They won't cover the debate fairly. They position it as left versus right.
Okay.
But that's not accurate. I mean, of course, there are people on the right, lots of people on the right, who are opposed to the idea of transgenderism, and it appears as though most on the left support the idea of transgenderism. But then there are also other people like me and other people in general who are afraid to speak up. And I know lots and lots and lots of women in Canada who are opposed to this idea and this ideology,
from a variety of political leanings. Then.
Sure, yeah. I mean, most of the women that I know are on the left and are feminists, but yeah, for sure.
Has any media reached out to you about this Twitter debacle or any other thing that?
Only right-wing media, the Daily Wire. People like, I don't want to name some of the other names because I turned down some of them, but right-wing media.
No left wing or moderate media?
Nobody in Canada. I mean, except for John Kay.
Yeah. And why do you think that is? Why do you think the left doesn't want to touch this at all? Is it because
they'll get in so much trouble. If they the last time I was on the CBC, which is our public broadcaster, and it was to talk about sex robots and sex doll brothels. Nothing to do with transgenderism.
Well, you didn't inspect every one of those robots now, did you? So
no, but I know what they look like. I know what they're for. I know what those men are doing to those robots. Being gross. As men are prone to be. And
it's okay to talk about sex bots and gross men. But not about.
Anyway, so just having me on the show, they got in trouble. They got all these people tweeting at them and saying that I'm a swerf and a TERF and that they shouldn't speak to me.
What's a swerf now? I know what a TERF is.
A sex worker exclusionary radical feminist. So it's applied to women who are opposed to the system of prostitution and opposed to the legalization of brothels and the decriminalization of buying sex.
Okay. But you're not out there punching prostitutes in the face. You're not anti-sex workers.
No.
You're against the institution.
I advocate for the decriminalization of prostituted women. I just want to criminalize the men. Get it?
Well, yeah, I get it, but you don't want to. But you draw the line at castrating the men. You don't want to eradicate the men. I'm trying to see how far you want to go.
Men. I mean, I spend so much time with them. Who would I hang out with? I'm just joking. I hang out with women also, but I do hang out with a lot of men.
Okay.
I have nobody to party with.
Okay, well there you go. So men are good for something.
Men like to go to the bar.
Yeah, bringing you cocaine and plying you with drugs.
They'll often pay for my shots of whiskey, which I appreciate.
Huh. I wanted to
get myself in trouble. I should stop pretending that this isn't going to go on the internet.
That's fine. No, this is my style of internet. Well, I wanted you because you said in your article that you published really recently. I don't know if it was yesterday or the day before. You said that you want to be more open to talking to people across the spectrum, across the aisle, and be among people who want to talk about ideas that they disagree with. And so I'm pushing you. Are you going to need to change your rhetoric as a radical feminist to be more inclusive yourself, to be less exclusionary yourself? Because it seems that people can construe you, or people feel that you're anti-men, that you're a misandrist, and that itself is not going to help. I
think that yes, I think I will have to change my rhetoric, and I think I have changed my rhetoric already.
Yeah.
And I mean,
because that rhetoric served a purpose at a certain point. Not only your age, but I think it did serve a purpose to get your name out there and to get on the radar of women to talk about serious issues.
I genuinely was angry at men, I've been treated like shit by men, and I've been in an abusive relationship, and I was really angry and still am angry about things like pornography and the kind of violence and really horrible misogyny that I see in pornography, and the fact that men that I know are looking at that pornography. I'm angry that men are buying sex from vulnerable women on the downtown east side. It makes me angry that men are treating women like this.
Okay.
So there was genuine anger there that I think in some ways was justified, but sure, yeah, like also, yeah, I don't know. I'm more interested in having more nuanced conversations.
I don't think you're going to lose any spunk transitioning into
no.
nuance, though. I don't think you need to be scared of that.
My entire personality. But yeah, I guess I think I started having conversations with people who had different perspectives, and I found those conversations interesting, and I found that those conversations were challenging my own ideology and assumptions, and I was like, oh, like, I guess I have to think more carefully about those ideas. Maybe this isn't all there is. And I think a lot of people are scared of that because it is kind of scary, because then you're in a position where you might have to backtrack. Mm-hmm. You might have to change your mind publicly and say that you were wrong about something that you've been advocating for a long time. You might... Sorry, somebody's at my door.
Well, we can wrap it up.
Should I get it, or should I just leave it? Can we just pause for a second?
Yeah, okay, let's pause.
Sorry.
What was it?
It's just pens. Oh. I was like, oh, I do like these pens, but it's not as exciting to listen to interrupt this for. I could have waited for my pens, I guess. Okay, so...
there was a B. You said A. It's difficult. You started having conversations.
You might lose allies. Like, I sort of felt like I was risking... If I start rethinking... I'm not completely turning around. I mean, I still support the same principles I've supported for some time now.
Have you and Karen Strong
asking certain questions, you risk losing allies, or people start to feel like that you're turning on them.
Yeah. And
so, I mean, I think that's probably what a lot of people on the left are worried about in terms of questioning transgenderism. That they'll be ostracized, that they'll lose all their political allies, they'll get in trouble, they'll lose friends, etc. So, I mean, it is a bit scary and it's a risk, but to me, I don't want to have to fake it, and I want to have conversations that are interesting to me. Like, I don't want to just keep repeating the same thing over and over again. If I don't believe it, I want to be honest.
Have any trans people reached out to you?
I mean, lots of trans people have reached out to me who are...
Positively.
Who identify as transsexual, like a lot of people will email me and say, like, I am, like, legitimately a man in a dress. Like, do you want to interview me? Like, because they agree with they're like, I'm not literally female. I just really, people who either genuinely have gender dysphoria and just felt really like their body was wrong and got surgery and went on hormones and now feel better. But know that that's not the same as literally being female, and don't think that I should be attacked over what I'm saying. Or people who, see it as like on autogynephilia, like they sort of have a fetish. They're like, it's just like, be honest. Like, why don't you just be honest about what it is that you're into or what you want? Like, why do we all have to engage in this lie? If we're supposed to be non-judgmental, then I guess what you should be fighting for is for people to be non-judgmental about your fetish or your desires or the clothes you wear.
And then through that honesty, be honest with the fact that not everybody has to play along with you.
Yeah. And don't bully people who are asking inconvenient questions. Don't try to silence people who are trying to have conversations about this or like question the consequences of this kind of legislation.
Yeah, yeah. Have you made some inroads into outlining how this legislation is bad or harmful?
Inroads in terms.
Is there a group that you're involved with, or are there papers that you're working with to outline the problems with this legislation? Are you part of a cohort?
I spoke against it at the Senate. They passed the legislation anyway, which I knew they would. But I just wanted it to be on record that there were feminists who are critical of this and concerned about how the legislation would impact women and women's rights. But there's no organized groups in Canada who are working against the legislation, unfortunately.
Do you think that the problems will start picking up in the next couple years? Totally.
They're already happening. I'm sure it'll just get worse.
What are some of the problems that arise from the legislation?
So in the UK, there was a man who was transferred to a women's prison named Karen White, who had been charged with rape a number of times, and like basically as soon as he got into, and so he started identifying as a woman, I don't know how many years ago, not that many years ago. As soon as he got into the prison, he assaulted a bunch of women. There's this man in Vancouver who was going around calling up estheticians asking for a Brazilian bikini wax, and they were saying no, they only do this service for women. And he's a pervert. Like there's a history of like pedophilic kind of stuff. Like he's a real creep. And then taking them all to human rights courts to try to sue them and get money off of them, saying they discriminated against him because he's a woman. He doesn't look like a woman. He's just a man who sometimes like puts on makeup and stupid outfits. And, you know, there's a bunch of women in the States a bunch of homeless women in the States who are suing their, what would it be called? It's like a home for homeless women. I think it's temporary, but they let a dude in, and he was sexually harassing them in the shower and gawking at them and making comments. So they're suing. There's a woman in Canada I talked to who was staying in a woman-only recovery house. So she was recovering from addiction issues, and they let a man in and forced her to share a room with him, and she had to leave because she felt so scared. Like she couldn't sleep. She felt so uncomfortable and weirded out. So she had to leave. You know, she's in recovery. She's already dealing with enough, right?
Yeah.
And she has to leave this space because they want to accommodate this man, because I'm sure they're so scared of being sued or getting in trouble if they turn him away and say, no, you can't be here because you're not a woman. So they have to say that he's a woman. They have to go along with it.
It seems like a big enough problem that something should be organized. So maybe your newfound infamy will be able to be pivoted.
It's not that new. It's just getting bigger.
Okay. You're exponentially.
It's for a long time. Yeah, maybe. I mean, I hope so. It's frustrating that there's nothing. I mean, there's only so much I can do.
What do you do beside the blog?
I mean, what do you mean?
You do speaking stuff, and then I don't.
Just writing. I mean, I do freelance writing.
Okay, cool. All right.
So I've got the website, and then I do freelance writing, and yeah, I do speaking stuff every once in a while, but that's not particularly lucrative for me at this point.
Yeah. Okay. When are you going to get your YouTube up and running?
I hope soon. I've been meaning to for like a really long time. It's just I have no time. So, and I also kind of want to fundraise a bit so I can buy some basic like equipment. And then yeah, just kind of deciding what I wanted to do with it. Like, it's like, I know that I wanted, you know, I think that it's like a good medium. But I also, because of what's going on with me and me kind of reconsidering what I'm interested in and the kinds of things I want to talk about, I was sort of trying to figure out if it was going to be sort of another arm of Feminist Current, what I'm doing already, or if it was just going to be something else. I think I want it to be something else, because I think that the people that I'm interested in talking to right now don't necessarily fit into the feminism box.
Oh, really? What's this new direction then, generally?
Well, I'm kind of interested in talking with people that I don't totally agree with.
Huh.
I guess I feel like a little bit bored of only talking to people that I already agree with.
Huh.
Those people are great. I really like them and want to support their work, and they support my work, and I just don't want to keep repeating the same thing over and over and over again. And I am kind of interested in challenging my ideas and and I feel like regretful that I've put people in boxes in order to dismiss them. I mean, people obviously do that to me, and I'm not only discovering this because of the way that I'm treated, but partly just from, listening to what other people have to say who I never really would have paid attention to or listened to before, and being like, oh, this is actually interesting. Like, oh, this person is intelligent. Like, we totally disagree about almost everything, but they're smart and their arguments are convincing, and I think it's interesting. I think it's a mistake to limit ourselves like that. Like, I think it's like, I don't know how we're going to affect change or get anywhere if we won't talk to or try to understand where other people are coming from, even other people who we think are really bad or wrong or hateful or whatever. I'm not suggesting like people go around talking to like crazy assholes or anything, but
yeah.
I mean, if you don't want it, I guess. But I think it's important to understand where people are coming from. I mean, there's a reason that I'm a leftist and that I've kind of always been a leftist, and there's reasons why people are right-wing also. And maybe it's because we haven't talked to each other. Maybe it's experiences. Maybe it's background.
You've been reading Jonathan Haidt, haven't you?
I don't want to tell you like another. The man that I'm in a relationship with right now is really. He's a fan of yours, actually.
Oh, there you go.
I don't know. He might be upset that I'm bringing him up on YouTube.
It's a small world.
Also, now everyone's going to be like, oh, it's a man influencing your political thought. Nice work, feminists.
Huh.
But so I've been watching like Dave Rubin and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, Rubin wants you on. Hopefully we'll see you on the couch.
They said, and I watched a Ben Shapiro clip the other day that I was like, no, that was very well argued. I'm in dangerous territory. And you
don't have to walk away to just open your ears.
No, I'm not walking away. I'm not like going to go join the right. Like, God, I don't believe in any of those ideas. But and I've been watching some of Jordan Peterson's lectures. Like his older. I sound like an apologist. Like if you just look at his older, some of his older lectures from like when he was just a prof are actually quite interesting.
Yeah.
Now when I watch him, when I watch what he's saying, or I see clips in mainstream news or whatever, I often don't understand what he's talking about. Like I don't think he's really made for clips. Like I think his ideas are so much more complex than that, so it doesn't translate well in that medium, which is unfortunate because he's in that position now of obviously being all over the place, and how there's quotes everywhere and people are like, what the fuck are you talking about? like it needs a much longer explanation. But it's stuff like that where I'm like, people are like, he's evil and dangerous. I'm like, I don't know if we really agree about anything, but I don't think he's evil and dangerous. And I kind of think some of his ideas are interesting, even if we have totally different perspectives on why society is the way that it is. And maybe they're not even totally different. Do you know what I mean? Maybe I don't want to limit myself in that way. And I just don't find it all that interesting. But maybe it's all a man's fault.
Well, it must feel good, even if it's his fault.
I don't think that I'm that easy to influence. I'm a pretty stubborn person.
Well, no, I mean, if you're bored That's telling you something.
Totally.
And if you're running away from boredom, like, something's going to happen to you. That'll be marvelous. Maybe even completely disastrous, but it'd be cool anyways.
I don't think it'll be disastrous. I hope it's not disastrous. Anyway, I just am, trying to be open about my train of thought and why I'm saying all these things and thinking about all this stuff and trying to talk to people that I otherwise may not have spoken with in the past, like the Daily Wire.
Are they that bad? I don't know.
The Daily Wire?
Are they?
I don't know. I don't read the Daily Wire.
Okay.
But I never have spoken to them before now.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you think you'll still use Twitter as a platform?
I mean, I hope so. Like, God, I hope that. I mean, I really like Twitter, to be honest. I enjoy it, and I like being able to connect to such a wide variety of people. I mean, I've been able to connect with like a hugely diverse group of people on Twitter.
Yeah.
And I think it's a really useful medium in terms of getting information out there and following what's going on. And obviously, I really like to argue. So
obviously,
it's perfect for that.
I'm sorry, I'm not really good at arguing. That's the criticism that I received on our last discussion.
I'm really good at arguing.
Why didn't you argue? I'm like, I'm not into arguing. I just want to talk. So
I mean, I feel like they're trying to kick me off, but I hope not.
Well, if they do, I don't think you'll stay out of the public eye for that long.
No, probably not.
I think it would hurt them more than it would hurt you in the long run.
Well, it's a bad look.
Yeah, it's a bad look, but they would be liquidating what makes the platform interesting, which is a bunch of weird people having weird discussions. Yeah,
I mean, the reason that people are on Twitter, I think, is to follow these kinds of debates in part, right?
Yeah.
And to be able to spout opinions at people they hate or that they like or whatever, Yeah. People obviously like that. They like the heatedness of Twitter. So we'll see.
All right, Meghan. Are you going to do any speaking gigs soon?
Yeah, I'm doing on January 10th. We're doing an event in Vancouver here about this issue. So about trans ideology and women's rights.
What's the theme? And are you going to have panels from a variety of viewpoints, or is it going to be?
I think it might be just me.
Oh.
We'll see. I might have a couple other people on a panel. It's hard in Vancouver because it's hard in Canada in general because there's, again, not that many people who are speaking out about this issue, and we don't have the money to fly people in from the UK or the States, for example.
That's true.
So they have to be local people. So it may just be me. Like it may just be like replicating what we did in Ontario, which was a really good event. And actually it's part of what's been getting me thinking about this stuff because the audience there was like so diverse. Like there was radical feminists, there was trans activists, there were all these like MRAs in the audience. And I just found that so interesting. I was like, I don't want to just talk to people who agree with me. Like I thought it was so like entertaining to have like men in the audience who were like, I don't believe in women's rights. And I was like, oh, I have to figure out how to respond to you guys. I just find it kind of like more exciting, I guess, and kind of refreshing. And they were all so nice. Like those dudes, they all came up to me after and were really polite, and they were like, thanks. They were like, sorry, I hope I didn't offend you. And I was like, oh, God, no. Like, I don't get offended. You can disagree with me all you want. They were much nicer to me than these trans activists were. I think these are good conversations to be having. Because, I mean, I'm sure those kinds of people also get into the trap of only talking to other men who agree with them and not hearing the opinions of radical feminists and turning us into tropes.
It's really difficult to run towards people who you disagree with because there's no immediate assurance that you're going to have a friend afterwards. You might be wasting your time. You might come away like you said, you might lose your friends. You might end up losing what you believed in, and you might not gain anything in the process, right? You just might gain more enemies by showing yourself to a fool in front of people.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to know if it's productive or not. I tend to think that it is productive, not with everybody, but I tend to think that we'll probably understand each other better if we just have normal conversations with each other and try to explain where we're coming from. And so, yeah, to like kind of avoid everybody turning everybody else into a stereotype.
Yeah.
That makes it really easy to dismiss them and dismiss their arguments because you're just inventing their arguments on their behalves, right?
Yeah.
Whereas when you talk to them, things are usually more complex.
Yeah, if you're right all the time, you're not learning anything.
Exactly. And I mean, you can't possibly be right all the time.
But you can go through life learning nothing. There's really a precedent for that.
It would be so boring to be right all the time.